Hello everyone, Kiara. Greetings and welcome to Immigration Advisors New Zealand Limited's web series on the New Zealand resident pathway. In today's series, which is the third edition in the multi-part series that we are hosting, we will be talking about nurses and healthcare workers. We intend for this series to be both educational and helpful for you all. If you have any questions, then I request you to please submit them in the Q&A box below, and we will be selecting a few of them at the end of the session to answer. For some context, we are a New Zealand-based organization. Our team of 30 spans from the globe, from New Zealand to India to Sri Lanka to Bangladesh to Nepal to the Philippines to Saudi Arabia and to Latin America. We are also an Education New Zealand recognized agent. Joining us today for the third episode of our Pathways to Residence webinar is our proficient licensed immigration advisor who has worked in this field of New Zealand immigration for over 24 years and is amongst the few people who have experience in having worked on both sides of the spectrum of this industry. Over the course of the career spanning more than 2 decades, she has excelled at managing people and serving clients from a wide variety of cultural backgrounds. Since 2019, she has been working in the migration and overseas education industry. Prior to this, she has also worked with Immigration New Zealand in New Delhi for the 21 years as an immigration manager. I'm delighted to present Tanuwa Majumdar-Bose, our today's speaker. Tanuwa, could you please take the platform and continue with the session?
Kia ora, guys. Thank you, Shiraz, for the lovely introduction. A very warm welcome to all of you who've taken the time out to attend today's webinar. As Shiraz mentioned, today we will talk about the residence pathway options that are available specifically for nurses and healthcare workers. We will see what are the options available and what are the requirements for these various options, and also where the opportunities sort of lie, which we can take. If you have any questions, please feel free to type that into the Q&A box, and we will take as many questions as we can within the time period of this webinar. In case we're not able to answer all your questions, we will definitely get back to you with responses, so don't worry on that count. Okay, so essentially for all skilled migrants, there are 3 possible pathways for residence. One is the skilled migrant category, which is essentially a point-based system where you can claim points for various factors, and I will go into that in more detail on a later slide. The second one is the green list residence pathways. Now, whilst there are 4 sort of pathways available under this, which is the straight to residence, the work to residence, there is a highly paid residence pathway, and then there is a care workforce residence pathway. Not all of them may be applicable for the nurses and healthcare professionals. And again, this is something that we will touch upon in detail in a while. And then the third option is how partners sort of have a pathway to residence along with the primary skilled migrant. So starting with the skilled migrant category, this is a type of visa application that people can make from while they are either in New Zealand or even when they are outside of New Zealand. If you are in New Zealand, then you need to be on a valid temporary entry visa. That is the first criteria. You need to ensure that. And if you're offshore, of course, you can see whether you are eligible or not given the factors that need to be considered under this category. So the skilled migrant category residence option is essentially a point-based system. It's a 2-stage process. The first of which is an expression of interest that needs to be made. So anyone who's interested in seeking this residence pathway has to complete an expression of interest, which goes into a pool of expressions of interest. Whilst the minimum points that you need to score to submit an expression of interest into the pool is 100. To be selected from the pool, you need to be able to get 180 points. That is the current sort of point threshold that is in place. EOIs are selected from the pool every fortnight. So there's a selection that happens every fortnight, and if you meet the 180 points, which is calculated on the basis of a number of factors, your EOI can get selected from the pool. Once it's selected from the pool, Immigration New Zealand does a preliminary assessment of the information that you have provided in the expression of interest to see that the points that you have claimed are accurate. And if that is the case, then they issue an invitation to apply, post which the residence application needs to be met. Now, going into what are the factors under which you can claim points. The first of which is age. You can claim points for age up to the age of 54 years and months. So as long as you're under 55 years of age, you can get points. The maximum points that you can claim under age is 30, which is in the bracket of 25 to 39 years. You can get points for skilled employment. This can either be in the form of an offer of employment from a New Zealand-based employer in New Zealand, or if you're already working in New Zealand in an employment, you can also claim points under skilled employment for that. Then you can claim points for bonus points also can be claimed for skilled employment. This is when either your skilled employment is outside of Auckland, or if it is in the long-term skills shortage list, you can also get bonus points for that. Going on to qualifications, again, the maximum points that can be claimed for qualifications is 70, which is for masters and above. If the qualifications are on a list of qualifications that are exempt from assessment, you can claim points which are for a bachelor's. If it's considered equivalent to a bachelor's degree in New Zealand, then you can claim about 50 points for that. If your qualification is either a master's or a PhD and it's considered at par with a New Zealand master's or PhD, then you can get 70 points for that. However, there are a lot of the qualifications might need to be assessed to determine whether it is at the same level as a New Zealand master's or a bachelor's degree, and that is done by the New Zealand Qualifications Authority, and based on the report that is given by them, the points can be claimed. Again, bonus points can be claimed if the qualification has been completed in New Zealand. Going on to work experience, points are available for work experience which is assessed as being skilled. Skilled work experience is essentially something that is in an occupation which is considered skilled by immigration, and the applicant is also considered to have previous knowledge and previous experience and is considered to be suitably qualified to do that job. The maximum points that can be claimed for work experience is 50, and it can be claimed whether it is done in New Zealand or outside of New Zealand. But again, if it's outside of New Zealand, there are a lot of other factors also that need to be assessed or need to be considered, whether we can say for surety that that work experience is eligible for points. Bonus points can also be claimed under skilled work experience, and that is if the work experience has been gained either in the long-term skill shortage list, or if the work experience has been undertaken in New Zealand and lawfully undertaken in New Zealand. Partners, if they are included in the application, their qualifications are also eligible for claim of points. And if the partner has an offer of skilled employment or employment in New Zealand, that can also be considered for award of points. in such a case, if you're claiming points for your partner's qualification or the partner's skilled employment, the partner will also need to meet the minimum standard of English, which is the same as that of the primary applicant, which currently is set at overall score of 6.5 in IELTS, or it's a PTE score or an OET score. So there are a few options that are available under that. So I've gone through most of this, as I've talked about the age, I've talked about the skilled employment and how you can get the skilled employment, points for skilled employment, the qualification part of things, as I've said, about 70 points being the maximum, and the bonus points that are available for claim of points under qualification, and the partner's points and the partner's requirements are also mentioned here. Moving on to the next one, which is the green list residence pathway. So the government of New Zealand recently came out with green list occupations. So it's a list of occupations that are in high demand in New Zealand, and this has a list of occupations where the government is also facilitating residence for people who have the required qualification and or the experience in these occupations, facilitating and fast tracking their sort of pathway to residence. So under the green list pathway, there are two options that come under the tier 1 are eligible for straight to residence, and the occupations that come under tier 2 fall under the work to residence pathway, where they need to be working for 24 months in that occupation before they become eligible to apply for residence. As I explained, nurses come under the straight to residence pathway, and the work to residence may not really be very relevant for the nursing and the healthcare personnel. It is actually, if you are paid twice the median wage, that's when you can apply under the highly paid residence category. That is not restricted to any occupation as such. The only requirement, the primary requirement under that category is that you need to be paid at twice the median wage, which currently is sitting at about $54. Going into the care workforce pathway, this is another residence pathway that has been instituted by the New Zealand government, essentially to meet the growing need for healthcare people in New Zealand. The care workforce pathway is actually very, very relevant for most of the healthcare workers in New Zealand. So if you fall under any of the specified healthcare or care workforce occupation, and if you've been working in that occupation for 24 months, you become eligible to apply for residence under this category. This is essentially to retain all the healthcare workers in New Zealand and giving them that opportunity to settle in a country where they have sort of worked and have gained that experience, and so that New Zealand can keep using that sort of skill tool, for their population. Coming to the partners, so again, while the primary applicants' skills and their qualifications and their work experience and their offer of employment and job in New Zealand can be considered, they don't have to make that migration journey all by themselves. The immigration instructions allow for people to migrate with their full family, so with their partners, with their dependent children. So if you're applying for residence, you can always include your partner and your dependent children in that application. As I mentioned earlier, under the skilled migrant category, you can actually even claim for points for your partner's qualification, and if your partner is working in New Zealand. Under the green list occupations, under the care workforce pathways, you can still include the partner. It's just that the partner's qualifications or skilled employment, those things don't really come into the mix, but they are eligible to be included, as long as, of course, you have to sort of establish or demonstrate that you and your partner have been living together for at least 12 months before you can submit the residence application. Okay, so that sort of brings me to the end of my topic. I will now. So we had a lot of people come up with questions when they, sort of submitted their registrations, and we picked up some of the few which had very common themes coming through them. So I will take these first sort of 5 questions first, and then we will move on to the Q&A round completely. And at this moment, I would also like to take the opportunity to introduce Vandana Rai, who's been so gracious enough to take the time out and to actually join us for this webinar, essentially for the the question answer session. So welcome, Vandana.
Thanks, Tanuva, and thank you everyone for joining us today.
So we have the first question. How can healthcare workers get residence in New Zealand, and what is the process?
Okay, so I can take that. So for healthcare workers, there are essentially 2 options that come up for residence. One is, if one is the care workforce, which is probably the most relevant, the care workforce residence pathway. This option becomes possible once you have worked in one of the specified care workforce occupation for 24 months. And once you've done that, you can apply for residence, and you still continue to be involved in that occupation. You get that residence under that category. The second one is the skilled migrant category. However, under that, you have to be paid a certain wage to be eligible to apply under the skilled migrant category. Now, whilst that is a direct sort of, you can apply directly for residence under that category, but again, there is a wage threshold that needs to be met. Vandana, is there anything you would like to add to that?
So those who are already working here in New Zealand as a healthcare worker, so they also have to make sure that they are working on the right visa. So those recent graduates who've just completed level 4 and are on a post-study work visa, you must make sure that you convert it to an accredited employer work visa, because 24 months on an accredited employer if work visa is what is required for you to be eligible after 24 months. Only if you had applied for any other type of visa before July 2022 could the other type of visa also be considered. But for recent graduates, we come across a lot of people who are already on a post-study work visa, working as a caregiver, level 4 salary, and they miss out on the fact that they need to come on an accredited employer work visa. So just make sure that you are on the right visa category as well. Yeah.
I'll move to the next question. How to become a registered nurse in New Zealand?
For somebody to become a registered nurse in New Zealand, there are multiple paths. So really depend on what your previous background is. Somebody who's a recent school graduate, just completed schooling, probably doing a bachelor's of nursing in New Zealand, a program which leads to nursing registration could be one pathway. Somebody who's got a background which is not in nursing but wants to become a registered nurse in New Zealand can again think of doing a program, a Masters of Nursing. There are a number of Masters of Nursing here in New Zealand which do not require basic qualification or a prerequisite of a nursing qualification. So you could think of changing your stream and becoming a nurse here as become a registered nurse here in New Zealand as well by doing one of those courses. For those registered nurse who are overseas qualified registered nurse, and that's a big bunch of registered nurse who are thinking of relocating to New Zealand, thinking of becoming a registered nurse here in New Zealand, and they can think of getting their registration sorted if they have 2 years of post nursing work experience, if they are meeting the Nursing Council of New Zealand's requirement, their English language requirement, and if everything is sorted, they can then come here in New Zealand to do a competency assessment program, which is a CAP program, which leads to nursing registration. So those who do not have a New Zealand nursing qualification but an overseas nursing qualification can think of meeting this requirement if through the CAP program as well.
Next question is, I'm a registered nurse in my home country and I want to become a registered nurse in New Zealand so that I can eventually get permanent residence. What is the pathway for this?
So I think this question is slightly similar to the previous one where we talked about overseas registered nurses. So if you are an overseas registered nurse, you need to apply for registration with the Nursing Council of New Zealand. You need to meet a few requirements, primarily the qualification requirement, the work experience requirement, and the minimum English language requirement. So you need to provide evidence of all of that. They will do an assessment of where your qualification, work experience, and English language, if they are at the level where a New Zealand sort of registered nurse needs to be. Once they've done that, they actually ask you to get a character check done. Once that is complete, the Nursing Council will issue a letter saying that essentially all the requirements for registration are met, but you might be needing to do a competency assessment program before you can get your full registration. And once you've got that, you need to get enrolled into a CAP program in New Zealand, and upon completion of that, you apply for your registration. You get your registration and you apply for your practicing certificate. While you're doing all of that, you might in fact get a job offer as a nurse, and the registration is obviously a mandatory requirement to work as a nurse in New Zealand. And if you get a job offer, you can then apply for residence under the green list straight to residence category. So that is the sort of pathway that is there if you are an overseas registered nurse.
The next question is, I'm an international qualified nurse and working as a caregiver in New Zealand. At the same time, I'm working towards studying CAP. I want to know a pathway to residence.
So, if you are an overseas qualified, international qualified nurse, and you're working as a caregiver, also doing a CAP program, you have more than one options towards your residence here in New Zealand. Once you complete your CAP program, provided you get a job as a registered nurse, once your registration is sorted, you can apply straight to residence as a registered nurse. So you need to get a job offer as a registered nurse for that. You are already working as a caregiver in New Zealand. So if when you meet 24 months of working as a caregiver, you may have the alternate path of the Careforce residence path as well. From our experience, the straight to residence path works the fastest. So somebody who's studying towards the CAP program must ensure that the registration is sorted as soon as possible, gets a job as a registered nurse as soon as possible, and can then apply for straight to residence visa as a registered nurse.
The next question is, I have a job offer in New Zealand and I have already completed my CAP. Can I apply for residence?
So this would depend on what's the job offer. So I'm assuming here that the job offer is that of a nurse because you completed your CAP. So if you completed the CAP, you have a job offer, and you've also got your registration completed, then yes, you can apply for residence on the basis of that job offer. Ideally, you should do the straight to residence green list category, because that is the faster sort of pathway that is available.
So we'll move to the questions that we have received in our Q&A box. The first question is, I'm working as a healthcare worker on an open work visa. Does my working years get counted if I apply for residence?
So yeah, I'll take that. As we previously conveyed, it really depends on when did you apply for your open work visa. For those who have applied for an open work visa before 4th July 2022, your years of working on an open work visa will be counted. For those who applied for an open work visa after 4th July 2022, the time will not be counted. So you immediately need to come on an accredited employer work visa. Over to you, Shiraz, for the next question, please.
Yes. The next question is, my husband is a resident now in New Zealand. He's working there in a construction industry and he's sponsoring me for partnership. I'm a registered nurse, but I have a 5-year gap. Am I still qualified to enroll for CAP?
For that, basically, the enrollment for CAP is dependent on first applying for the registration process and getting a letter from the Nursing Council which has assessed your qualifications and work experience in English, and then gives you a decision letter saying that this is, you met all the criteria for registration and you now need to complete the CAP program before you can get the registration. So I guess for you the first step would be to actually apply for registration. Whilst the 5-year gap, the 5-year gap, I cannot say for sure whether that's going to make a difference or not. However, you need to at least have 2 years of post-qualification work experience, that is the basic minimum requirement that you need to meet, for applying for registration as a nurse in New Zealand.
Okay.
Vanna, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, that's all good. All good. And this particular question needs probably more in-depth assessment. So we would request you to send us your details. Sometimes the nursing work experience may not be in the clinical field, so that needs to be checked. So there could be specific things that we would need an assessment. So we'd request you to click on the link, submit your information, so we could do an assessment and give you a clarification on your question then.
Okay, the next question is, I have worked as a registered nurse in Fiji for 5 years now. I have completed my OET and I've started with my CG-FNS verification process. How can I further proceed from here, as I wanted to work as a healthcare assistant and then progress to becoming a registered nurse? If you could please assist.
So I'll take this question. So if you're wanting to work as a healthcare assistant, you can apply. So any pathway leading to residence, be it green list, be it straight to residence or care force, requires a job offer in the relevant field. So if you're thinking of coming here as through the pathway of the healthcare worker, then you need to apply based on your technical experience that you have. You do have a chance, but you still need to apply and see if you get a job. So if you get a job, you can come to New Zealand, start working as a healthcare worker while you complete your CAP program and work towards your nursing registration requirement. So a possibility there, but you need to apply and get a job to move to the next step. Over to you, Shiraz.
The next question is, I'm a registered nurse with 20 years of experience in Sri Lanka. I do not have a BSc, but can I still apply for New Zealand nursing if I've completed my IELTS?
Vanna, do you want to take that one?
So I kind of missed it. Shiraz, could you please repeat the question once again?
Yeah. The question is, I'm a registered nurse with 20 years of experience in Sri Lanka. I do not have a BSc. Can I still apply for New Zealand nursing if I've completed my IELTS?
So the usual path for the nursing registration requires overseas nursing qualification. So you are a qualified and a registered nurse. However, there could be discretionary paths, and we would not comment on that. But you could also think of applying as a caregiver, as a healthcare worker to probably see if that option towards the residence works better for you. But if you have 20 years of work experience, and if you say you don't have a bachelor degree, it may so mean that you are a diploma nurse or a GNM. So we would need more information in there. You would have got some qualification that would have made you eligible for, eligible to work as a nurse. So we would need to know what was that qualification if it wasn't a bachelor's, and probably we can guide you more on that.
The other one is I'm an auxiliary nurse midwife, A&M, having 3 years of work experience. Am I eligible?
So we would need more information in there. So we would need to see where are you working as. There could be options, pathways for auxiliary nurse midwife, but really depends on where do you have the registration to practice. So do you have a New Zealand registration? So we would suggest please do click on the link, give us a bit more of your information, and then we could provide you the assessment and the options available to you.
Okay. The next question is, I'm a nurse planning to migrate to New Zealand, and after registration with the New Zealand Council, New Zealand Nursing Council, if I get a job, can I apply for PR? What is the age limit of dependent children who can be eligible to get a PR?
So yes, if you get a job offer as a nurse, and you are able to get your registration also as a nurse, you can apply for residence on the basis of that. Dependent children up less than 25 years of age can be included in the residence application, and they can only be included till the time that they don't turn 25. If they turn 25, then they will no longer be considered as dependent children. And even if they are up to the more than to 20 years, you will need to be able to show that they're financially dependent on an adult for them to be included in the application. So they can't be working, they can't be married, those things cannot happen.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. It says, I have a Bachelor of Science in Physical Therapy degree from Philippines, and I have worked in a military hospital in Saudi Arabia as a physiotherapy technician. I'm interested to work as a healthcare in New Zealand. What is the best pathway to come there? And hope I can get some advice.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we would suggest that do apply and see if you can get a job as a healthcare worker. You do have a lot of experience in a relevant field and do have a chance of getting a job. Do share your CV with us and click on the link and submit your information. And if we are able to provide you a direction, we would love to do that. And once you get a job as a healthcare worker, then the options could be initially applying for an accredited employer work visa. And once you are here and you start working in the line, after working here for 24 months as a healthcare worker, you could then apply for residence as well. So do share your CV and fill up the link, and we will let you know what are the options and where all can you apply for the job.
Okay. The next question we have is, I'm a registered nurse offshore for 5 years now, and I've done my OET and started my CG FNS. Can I send my expression of interest for skilled migrant visa? My partner is already in New Zealand on open work visa for 4 years now.
Shiraz, could you just please repeat that question?
Sure. I'm a registered nurse offshore for 5 years now, and I've done my OET and have started my CG FNS. Can I send my expression of interest for skilled migrant visa? My partner is already in New Zealand on an open work visa for 4 years now.
Okay. So I can start answering that question, which is that to apply for the expression of interest or to put in the expression of interest, the minimum points that you need to score considering all the factors like age, qualifications, work experience, etc., is 100 points. But as I also mentioned, that the current threshold of point requirement is 180 points. So unless you get 180 points and you're able to get those 180 points now, submitting the expression of interest is actually futile, because it's not likely to be taken, or it's not likely to be selected from the pool, because you have to get to those 180 points. You once you've completed the CGFNS process, and the next step in the process is likely to be, if everything else checks out, is that the Nursing Council is going to issue you a letter saying that you might want to, you please enroll for the competency assessment program or the CAP program. And then once you've completed the CAP program successfully, you get registered and are able to get a job offer as a nurse, that's the time when you should probably look at putting in your residence application, rather than attempting to do it right now when you might not be meeting the points requirement. The other thing is, the other factor is your partner being currently on an open work visa. That is another factor that we might have to consider to see whether there are options for residents from that angle. So again, this is a fairly specific sort of query, which might just be better handled if we can have a sort of one-on-one discussion about this with you. So please use the link to put in your query, and we will be more than happy to guide you through the process, considering all the relevant information about your circumstances.
Okay. The next one is, I'm working as a full-time support worker. From when can I apply for my residency? What would be the criteria for study, pay rate, and working years?
Could you repeat that, please, Shiraz?
I am working as a full-time support worker. From when can I apply for residence? And what would be the criteria for study, pay rate, and working years?
Vanna, can I request you to take that question, please?
Yeah, I would take that. So it really depend on since when have you started working as a caregiver? What is the visa that you are working on? So we would need to know more on that. What is the salary that you are getting? So if I tell you the pay rate requirement is that you should be getting the level 4 pay rate of a caregiver. So that means, are you on a level 4 salary working as a caregiver? So you should have worked on a level 4 pay rate for 24 months on an eligible visa before you are eligible to apply for the residence visa. So again, we would need more information on what visas have you worked on, what are you working on a level 4 pay rate, how many months, and when will you complete 24 months on that. Once we have that information, we can give you the exact date you would be eligible to apply for. So do send in your query, and we would assess and give you the options there.
Okay.
Over to you, Shiraz.
Yes. Okay. I am a registered nurse in Sri Lanka with 12 years experience with a diploma of general nursing and IELTS in general, diploma of community services in Australia as well. Can I apply?
Sorry, can you please repeat? I think there's not able to hear all the questions properly.
Okay. I'm a registered nurse in Sri Lanka with 12 years experience. Diploma of general nursing and IELTS is 6 bands. I have also, I'm assuming she's also done diploma of community services in Australia as well. How can I apply for a caregiver? Or
so I'll take that, Tina. So basically, I'll just give a generic answer to a lot of similar questions that are coming in. So because we may not have time to cover all, we are getting a lot of questions on how can I apply. So just a disclaimer, we are an immigration advisor firm, and we would not be able to assist you with the recruitment process. But what we would convey is you need to have a job offer to move on to the next step. So see if you can apply. There are websites where these jobs are advertised: seek.co.nz, careers.nz. There could be recruitment agencies. So contact them, and that's how you apply. And if you get a job, you can contact us. Or prior to that, if you need to know what kind of jobs you would need, again you could contact us and we can give you more clarification on the pay rate requirement, on the kind of jobs that will make you eligible. So we'll probably not taking more questions on how do I apply. So that's kind of, we've generically answered, but any specific questions that are left, we'll be happy to take on. So I'll because we have less time, I'll quickly see if there's any important question that we may have missed. And Shiraz, feel free to read, and Tina, you too, and so that we don't miss out on any of those type of questions we've not answered till now. So there's one person who's specifically asking on the English language requirement to be a registered nurse here in New Zealand. I'll quickly answer that. 7 bands in each modules in IELTS, except for writing, wherein 6.5 is also acceptable, or 350 score of OET in all modules, except writing, where 300 is also acceptable, is what is required. I would take another few questions which I can see there is about people who've recently got their student visas declined, and they want to have the options that would be available. So again, I would request you to fill up the link. We would need to see the reasons for the decline. If we can also have a copy of the assessment notes or the client file records if you have. So we really need to know the reason for the decline, so we could guide you on whether a reassessment or a resubmission is possible, or further options would be available to you. Yeah. Over to you, Shiraz.
Okay. Just going through.
Okay, I'll take a quick one there. I can see this is not. So somebody is asking about information on spouse and baby. So so if somebody is applying for an accredited employer work visa as a registered nurse, partner gets the option to apply for a partnership-based work visa. Children above the age of 5 years can apply for a student visa, and children below the age of 5 years can apply for a visitor visa. As soon as that person, along with it, when the person applies for the residence visa, the partner and the children could also be included in the application. And the previous answer, Tina has given information on till when a dependent child is considered dependent. Yeah. So that's covered.
There is one question here which I'm going to read out, which is: my open work visa started from November 2019 and I'm still on open work visa and I'm working as full-time support worker. So I have to count my 24 months to apply for residency. Does my open visa working time count, or only accredited working visa month will be counted? Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, considering that person has started working, got the open work visa in 2019, so the time would be counted. So you don't need to change. So that's all good for you.
Covered.
So PTE, so it says, hello ma'am, is PT accepted for registered nurse in New Zealand? So for nursing registration, it's either IELTS or it's the OET test. So these are the two tests that they consider for registration for the nursing registration purposes.
So this, I'll read another question. What will be the procedure to bring my spouse and baby after my student visa? So really depends on what you are studying. If you are studying a course which gives you post-study work visa, then as a partner of a post-study work visa holder, partner is eligible to apply for a partnership-based work visa, and the child gets either a dependent child visitor visa or a dependent child work visa based on the age. If you're doing a course which doesn't allow you a post-study work visa and you need to apply for an accredited employer work visa, then it will depend on how much are you being paid. So if you're paid above the median wage rate at that time, your partner would be eligible to apply for a partnership-based work visa. If you would be paid less than median wage rate, then partner would be eligible to apply for a partnership-based visitor visa. So that's done.
Okay. I'll read out one question. I'm a registered nurse working for 12 years as a nurse in a pediatric unit, but now I'm working as a nursing tutor for the last 5 years. How can I register as a nurse in New Zealand as I'm not involved with direct patient care for recent 2 years?
Okay, so this was the criteria or the kind of scenario which I was discussing earlier. So somebody who doesn't have a direct clinical work experience but was working as a nursing tutor, we would need more information from you. Previously, we have assisted our clients wherein there wasn't a direct clinical work experience as required by the Nursing Council, but a work experience which probably was like a nursing tutor or somewhere in the field, but not directly as the requirement stated by the Nursing Council. So do get in touch, and we have assisted similar profiles earlier, and we would need to see a few other things. And if you're interested in doing a CAP program, we would assess and get back to you if that's a possibility for you.
Okay, I think we've sort of exceeded our time already. So, just as a final sort of word, that whatever questions we haven't been able to answer in this session, we have a team of people who've taken a note of all those questions, and we will get back to you with responses on those. So please do not worry that your question wasn't taken and answered during the session. All the questions are important, and all the questions are very, very valid for you, and then therefore very important. Finally, thank you all for taking the time to attend this webinar today. It was great to have you all here and for us to present, the options that are available for the healthcare course in options for them in New Zealand. And we hope you found the information that we gave you today useful. And as we mentioned before, if you have specific queries, and if your circumstances require that kind of specific tailored advice, please use our contact detail here. Please send us your query at this email address, and we will be sure to get in touch with you and help you out with your migration matter and your journey to New Zealand. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Shiraz, and thank you, Vandana, for joining us as well. We hope to see you all again for the next session, which we will be, the details for which we will be sending out very soon. So thank you all, and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice weekend.